Most people think anxiety comes from thinking too much. But the truth is, a lot of overthinking is actually the nervous system trying to protect you from emotional pain. You're not struggling because you're weak, and you're not too sensitive. The reason you constantly scan for rejection, replay conversations, fear abandonment, shut down emotionally, or struggle to trust love might have less to do with the present moment and more to do with the meaning your mind learned to attach to connection itself. By the end of this video, you'll understand why fear changes perception, why trauma makes love feel unsafe, and how healing begins when the mind stops identifying with fear as true. A lot of people living with childhood trauma, emotional neglect, anxious or avoidant attachments, or CPTSD are carrying an invisible emotional workload every single day. And most people around them never see it. Because externally they might look functional, but internally their nervous system is constantly scanning text messages, scanning tone changes, scanning silence, and scanning facial expression, and scanning distance. Trying to answer questions like, did I do something wrong? Are they upset with me? Am I too much? What if they leave? What if I get hurt again? And after a while, this becomes exhausting. Some people become anxious and cling harder to connection. Others emotionally detach before anyone can hurt them. Some over-explain constantly because they fear being misunderstood. And some become hyper-independent because needing people once felt dangerous. And many people don't even realize they are living this way because survival mode became normal so early in life. You might call it anxiety, but underneath is it often something deeper, a nervous system that learned emotional safety was unpredictable. And when the body expects emotional danger, the mind begins interpreting life through fear. The ego is not confidence, it's fear. Psychologically, you can think of the ego as the survival based identity the mind creates after emotional pain. The part of you that believes, I am unsafe, I am not enough, love can disappear, I need to protect myself. And once the nervous system learns those beliefs, it starts organizing perception around them. This is why trauma changes not only emotions, but interpretation. Your brain learned to prioritize survival, so the mind adapts through hypervigilance, people pleasing, emotional withdrawal, or defensiveness and overthinking, or perfectionism, or needing validation, or expecting rejection. Not because you are irrational, but because your nervous system adapted intelligently to painful experiences. If love felt inconsistent, your mind learned to monitor connection obsessively. If criticism was common, your brain learned to scan for judgment. If emotional closeness led to pain, your body learned to associate vulnerability with danger. And eventually, perception itself changes. A delayed reply no longer feels neutral. Silence feels threatening. A boundary feels like abandonment. Someone being tired feels like rejection. This is what psychology calls cognitive distortion and projection. The mind stops seeing reality clearly because fear begins filling in the gaps. And the difficult part is, when fear feels familiar, it can start feeling true. That's why so many people with attachment wounds confuse anxiety with intuition. But not every thought is wisdom. Sometimes it's survival conditioning, replaying old emotional expectations. And this is where the deeper shift begins. What if your suffering is not only coming from what happened to you, but from the meaning your mind keeps assigning to what happens now? That changes everything because many people are not reacting only to the present moment. They are reacting to accumulated emotional memory. The mind sees through the past until healing begins. And once fear becomes the lens, everything starts looking dangerous. You begin expecting rejection before connection. You interpret uncertainty as danger. You prepare for abandonment before intimacy even has a chance to exist. And this creates something many people never notice. The nervous system begins protecting you from love itself. Because emotionally, love feels risky. Love and fear cannot rule the mind at the same time. Psychologically, this is deeply accurate. A nervous system in threat state cannot fully experience connection because survival and openness require different biological states. Fear contracts perception. Love softens it. Fear prepares for harm. Love allows presence. Fear scans. Love receives. And most people with unresolved trauma are trying to experience connection while their nervous system is still bracing for impact. That's why healing is not just mental, it's physiological, it's relational, it's perceptual. And it begins when you stop automatically believing every fear based interpretation your mind produces. Now, let's make this real. Imagine someone with anxious attachment sends a text. Hours pass. Immediately, the nervous system spirals. They're losing interest, I said something wrong, I'm being abandoned. Same situation. Now, someone with secure attachment experiences the exact same delay. Their mind says, they're probably busy. Same event, different nervous system interpretations. Or take avoidant attachment. Someone begins getting emotionally close. Instead of warmth, the body feels trapped. The mind creates distance. I don't need anyone. Relationships are draining. Something feels off. But often, what feels off is vulnerability itself, because emotional dependence once felt unsafe. Disorganized attachment can feel even more confusing. A person deeply craves connection but also fears it. So they move towards love and away from it simultaneously. They want reassurance, then shut down when they receive it. They fear abandonment but also fear being emotionally consumed. And underneath all of this is often the same core wound. The nervous system learned that closeness and pain exist together. Even social situations reflect this. Someone walks past without saying hello. One nervous system interprets. They probably didn't notice me. Another immediately feels shame. They are upset with me. Not because the second person is dramatic, but because shame changed perception. And projection deepens this further. Someone secretly harsh towards themselves might assume everyone else is judging them. Someone carrying unresolved anger might experience others as threatening. The inner world quietly shapes the outer experience. So, most people never realized how much emotional pain comes not only from reality, but from fearful interpretation layered onto reality. So, what does healing actually look like? It starts very differently than most people think. Healing is not becoming emotionless. It's not thinking positive. is not forcing yourself to stop feeling anxious. Healing begins when you learn to observe your mind without immediately believing every fear response it creates. When you pause and ask, what actually happened? What meaning did my nervous system attach to it? Is this present reality or old emotional memory? That pause changes everything because awareness interrupts automatic survival patterns. And slowly, the nervous system begins learning something new. That connection does not always equal danger. That boundaries are not always abandonment. That silence is not always rejection. That vulnerability is not weakness. And maybe most importantly, that your worth is not determined by whether someone chooses you, validates you, or stays. The deeper healing process is not becoming perfect. It's becoming safe enough internally that fear no longer controls perception. And forgiveness becomes part of this too. Not forgiveness as pretending pain didn't matter, but forgiveness as releasing the constant emotional replay that keeps the nervous system trapped in old suffering. Sometimes the mind keeps revisiting pain because it believes staying guarded will prevent future hurt, but often it only prolongs the wound internally. Forgiveness says, I no longer want this pain organizing my identity, and that creates freedom. So, most people spend years trying to change their circumstances without realizing the deeper struggle might be the fearful lens through which they experience themselves, relationships, and life. And once you begin seeing this, you start recognizing that many of your reactions were never signs that you were broken. They were adaptive survival responses from a nervous system trying to protect you. That realization alone can begin softening shame because you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what happened to my nervous system and how can I help it feel safe again? That question changes healing completely because real healing is not becoming someone else. It's slowly learning how to experience connection, love, vulnerability, and yourself without fear constantly narrating reality. And most people never realize this. The quality of your life is deeply shaped by the quality of the meaning your mind repeatedly creates. So, change the lens, and emotional reality begins changing too. And that's where real healing begins. Because once you understand that pattern, you begin seeing your mind very differently.